but this might be a controversial take. But Kagurabachi right now, I think out of all the ongoing weekly manga in Shonen Jump currently, might have some of the best panel work in the lineup, personally. The way Hokusonu draws these perspectives during these fights is just utterly next level. I made a short about this. This panel of Iori looking through the people and seeing Chihiro just going balls to the wall, taking out all of these goons like there is no tomorrow, has to be top 10 panels within the series easily. And this isn't the first time that Hokusonu has done stuff like this. He did a fisheye panel like way back when Shiba was fighting one of Hakuri's brothers here. And he also does these postcard panels that are just some of my favorites within the series, and he just never disappoints. But anyways, our work aside, we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's just talk about the chapter.
Sometimes you gotta close the door to open a window.
This chapter opens up with Hirohiku having arrived to the Bloodshed Hotel, and immediately upon learning Chihiro is alive, the dude starts crying. He really loves Chihiro, which is funny in and of itself. I really like the dynamic that is going on. But upon learning that Chihiro is protecting Iori, Hirohiku locks it the fuck in and decides to erase all of the dudes sat in that lobby right now, purely by himself. Even with Toto offering up her help to Hirohiku, he's just adamant that he will do it by himself. He's on his Thanos arc right now. And spoiler alert, he does it by himself. Toto notes how all of the staff are swordsmen of varying skill levels and such. The main challenge will be the big shot, Sengoku Yojiro, a master of the Reigen sword style. Now, a slight mistake made by Hokusonu here is that Sengoku notes how Hirohiku bears the mark of the Hishaku on his hand, but Hirohiku actually has no mark on his hand because that doesn't make any sense at all. So why would Sengoku say this? Because Hirohiku lost the hand that he had the mark on, and then he got new arms reattached to him. So my best guess right now is that Sengoku actually saw Toto spawn Hirohiku in and saw the mark on Toto's hand, and just referring to that because I don't know. But regardless, Sengoku rushes forward here, clashing blades with Hirohiku. Now, in my previous video, I said this.
Last time on Dragon Ball Z.
They're all masters of the Rain one sword style. Now, this is Hokusonu's way of telling us, yeah, they're kind of cool, but they are going to be cannon fodder. I'm just going to try and hype him up a little bit. Well, I was right. These guys are fodder, because Hirohiku just bodied this dude. Hirohiku blocks Sengoku's strike, but due to Hirohiku's unpredictable nature, Sengoku ends up losing an arm, and thus he ends up losing the battle. And this man Hiro just drops his sword behind his back while simultaneously dodging Sengoku's strike, rolling out from underneath his strike and then slicing his arm off. After recognizing that Sengoku is more than likely done, he tells the rest of the guys, just come at me, come on, let's just get this over and done with. And I think one of the best things that I love about Hirohiku for me personally is that it's this childish nature. It's how he maneuvers through the world. He reminds me a lot of Mahito, and there's a lot of people in the community already drawing these parallels. They kind of look similar, they kind of have these sorts of same mannerisms, and I've mentioned it in Shonen Sunday streams and in previous videos that the dynamic between Yuji and Hirohiku is kind of reminiscent of it. It's this I am you type beat of Shonen storytelling. You see it quite a fair amount in a lot of shonen tropes, and it's kind of one of my favorite tropes, to be honest with you, within manga. It's one of my favorite storytelling tropes where the hero's confronted with someone who's kind of like a villain but also sort of not a villain, and then tells him that you're not far different from me. Very reminiscent of the Green Goblin and Spider-Man and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man back in the day. But for Hirohiku, for him, all of this is just fun. He's just here for the fun of it. He's only here for the friendship of Chihiro, because again, he just wants to be friends with Chihiro, and his way of being friends is like trying to kill each other. But he's like a kid on a playground. He's just excited, and this playground is only filled with knives and blades and death and gore and sorcery. And anyway, unrelated to the story, but one thing that I love about Kagurabachi here is how Hokusonu draws sequences like this, because as Hirohiku is cutting off Sengoku's arm, everything else in the world just fades away. It's this one moment, it's like it's locked in time. It's a moment of clarity right here, and Hokusonu draws this just pure white clean background. It's kind of reminiscent of Bleach, just only focusing on the character, no background. That's like it's all he wants you to draw the attention to. And I've made the comparison between Kagurabachi and Bleach many times here now. That the swords are very, very reminiscent of Zanpakuto, but this whole thing, it just sort of helps you truly focus in on the events that are happening on the page, and it lets you notice all the beautiful details that Hokusonu pours into this series. And good lord, there are a lot. He pours in a lot of details. I mean, it is understating it to say that Hokusonu he's a fiend for adding references to film, TV, and other pop culture icons and references in his works and in his chapters, and he delivers this week after week after week of high octane, high energy, the vibe that a lot of shonen fans, myself, love and just respect and crave every week. It just makes the series a pleasure to read every week. Now, I talked about this briefly on my Shonen Sunday stream, which you should come along to every Sunday. We read Kagurabachi, Centuria, other manga live every Sunday, but I recently talked about the impact that Jujutsu Kaisen has had on the readers of Weekly Shonen, how it's sort of affecting people, how they read, and it's also kind of affecting authors. Now, I'm not saying Jujutsu Kaisen invented the formula, but Gege certainly took it to a new level. It's a formula that was writing a weekly story every week, but having insane events going on every week, and making the weekly read for the series incredible. It wasn't boring. Like, I feel like right now Chainsaw Man is kind of suffering from that sort of week-to-week fatigue. It's a bit tedious right now, but obviously in a complete read, it's going to hit like crack in the 80s. But right now, if you cast your minds back to Jujutsu Kaisen, the weekly read for the Cullen game, Shinjuku, Gojo vs Sakura, it was unreal. Every single week we were just hooked like fiends on fentanyl. And now I believe that those efforts have not only sort of affected the culture of how we as manga readers consume the medium of manga, but I also think it's a case of how it's affected mangaka who are coming up now, this new generation, case in point being Hokuzono, because when Kagurabachi dropped, it kind of started as this quote-unquote meme. It's just, oh, it's an industry plant, it's a meme, haha, look at Chihiro, he looks all goofy. But now it evolved into, well, actually, it's not just a meme anymore. And then it went further, and people started to realize that the series is actually going somewhere. You're actually pushing this, and it's actually good. And that formula was deeply reminiscent of Jujutsu Kaisen, because every week we were just getting hype chapters. I mean, if you go back and read the first 20 chapters of the series, you're like, holy fuck, it's all gas, no breaks. And even when we do get the breaks, it's kind of still all fucking gas. So the formula was very, very reminiscent of Jujutsu Kaisen. It's been dawning on me more and more that I'm seeing that around more and more manga coming up. And again, I'm not saying that Jujutsu Kaisen invented the formula, but it certainly made it popular. Because after all, if you read the series week to week, you can attest to the level of hype that Jujutsu Kaisen was carrying with it every single week. And I know a fair amount of Jujutsu Kaisen fans that were refugees after Gege traumatized them ended up seeking refuge in Hokuzono's loving arms, and so far he's not disappointed. But anyway, speaking of disappointed, I am kind of disappointed that you haven't liked and subscribed yet, but I am also kind of sad that we didn't get to see more from Sengoku here. He is felled by Hirohiku, who drops possibly one of my favorite lines in the entire series of Kagurabachi: I am a student of freedom. Now, as I mentioned before, Hirohiku has this childish aura. He's just like this kid who's just exploring a playground, and I love that. I love everything that this line represents. I love everything that it means. Despite Hirohiku being an utter psychopath, he embodies this line perfectly. He is a student of freedom. He's just doing what he wants. But we cut back over to Chihiro, who is currently looking after Iori, who had passed out in the last chapter. Now, over the past couple of chapters, Hokuzono has been very, very in your face, and he's gone out of his way to push some very, very big parallels into your face. This man has been up in your face about it. Chihiro and Hirohiku, Chihiro and Iori, they're all in this trifecta right now of just parallels, basically. These three characters, they're all interlocked. Chihiro's clash of ideals and his struggles with Hirohiku will directly affect how Iori's life turns out going forward. Her fate is kind of in their palms as they are battling it, this weird battle that they've got going on right now. But also at the same time, Hokuzono is going out of his way to show us the difference between Iori and Chihiro alongside their own similarities, because just like Hirohiku and Chihiro, him and Iori are also just two sides to the same coin. They're both children of war heroes, and thus their circumstances are vastly different but also incredibly similar. But their paths in life have just sort of led them in opposite directions, and this chapter really homes that in. Iori went to school, Chihiro didn't. Iori detests murder, and Chihiro is completely and utterly comfortable with it as a tool for what he needs to do in life. He's comfortable with being a monster, but he is terrified by it. She's terrified of this life that Chihiro is living, and she's almost sort of terrified of Chihiro as a person. She doesn't want to live that life, or at the very least she's scared by it. And it's these little differences that come out in their conversations, in their mannerisms, how they react to certain situations. It all just comes out. For example, Iori asks if Chihiro had slept, to which Chihiro doesn't even answer. He just continues waffling about his sword techniques and how he's been taught battle techniques now. It's a different train of thought, and the conversation continues further with Iori asking Chihiro about his age, if he'd ever been to school. And Iori says all of this time he's just been enmeshed in bloodbaths, but students like her stealing each other's lunch, competing for test scores, and playing drawing games, they were her fierce battles. And Chihiro looks almost unfazed by this conversation. He just replies with, that's just peaceful. It's kind of like, I wouldn't know, I guess. He's just nonchalant, this nonchalant demeanor that he just constantly has as a result of the life that he's lived. I mean, even the reactions to the current situation that they're in right now are so vastly different. They're in a hotel room that, for all intents and purposes, is just a massive fucking target right now, and Iori is in a constant state of panic, wondering about who's going to knock at the door to come for her head, and Chihiro is just completely calm. He's in a state of zen right now. All he's thinking about is, I want to learn some new sword techniques. And Chihiro even mentions they are children of war, as I mentioned earlier. Their circumstances are similar, but Chihiro had the idea that it's better to live with the truth even if it hurts. And I think had this conversation continued here and now, I think both Chihiro and Iori would have probably decided to just return to their lives. And I think they probably would have decided that it was best for Iori to just return to her normal school life. And she kind of comes to this decision a little bit later on, but I think her sitting on the bed would have further reinforced that decision. I'll swing back around for this little subject in a second here. But the path that it is on right now is already a painful one. And even just learning about her dad, there is just this sense of betrayal. She's unable to see it from her dad's perspective, but his actions that he has took in his own eyes were the best course for her. And as a parent myself, I kind of relate to that. Only want what's best for your child, even if it's painful to yourself. It's kind of a decision that I can sort of see. It's weird seeing myself in this story at the moment of seeing both sides of the fence. As a child, I would feel betrayed if my parents did what happened to Iori to me, but as a parent, I see why they did it. So it's a very conflicting and complex set of emotions that are going on within this chapter, but Iori can't see that. She just feels nothing but left out and abandonment, and she feels like that feeling is going to stay with her, especially even after regaining slight memories of her dad, and those memories that happen to just come back are also just painful memories that just reinforce that feeling of betrayal and abandonment. Anyways, an assassin knocks on the door to Chihiro's room here, and she tries to take Chihiro out, with Chihiro just effortlessly tossing this dude aside and saying, "Who sent you?" And this guy, he lets Chihiro know that someone promised him a shit ton of money. We don't get to know who that someone is, but I'd probably wager a guess it's probably a member of the Hishaku, Toto, Kuguri, or maybe even Hirohiku himself. But this money isn't going to save him because Iori comes running to the door to see what Chihiro is doing, as Chihiro closes the door and says, "Stay put. You don't want to see this." But curious as Iori is, she goes to see what the commotion is and peeps through the peephole in the door and sees Chihiro completely and utterly decimating a hallway filled with goons who had come to kill him and Iori. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Hokuzono's artwork in the weekly shonen lineup right now might actually just be the best in the current lineup when it comes to perspective, choreography, and paneling, in my opinion. I think Sakamoto Days is close, and so too does Dandadan. They both come close, in my opinion, but panels like this, drawn from the perspective that this is taken in, of this fisheye lens observing this, all of this action is what separates Kagurabachi apart from the craft. I feel like Sakamoto Days and Dandadan, they get pieces of the puzzle correct sometimes, in my own opinion, but Kagurabachi just puts it all together in this beautiful, neat little package and presents it to you on this weekly basis. Even the blood spattering on the peephole to cover up the action and symbolize that this is done, this is over with, and Chihiro's won the fight. It's just a nice, beautiful, subtle touch, but Chihiro ends up telling Iori it's okay, and she steps out into the hallway that is completely and utterly littered with bodies that Chihiro has just dropped and left behind. As she stands there, Chihiro is calm as anything, and Iori, again, is understandably panicked by these events. She's just walked out into a hallway filled with bodies, but Chihiro's just standing there, aura farming, as the kids would say, and Iori asks if Chihiro is scared, and all Chihiro can think about is, shit, I still haven't perfected this fucking sword technique right now. This dude is just not thinking like a normal human being. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Hokuzono's going out of his way to show us the difference between Chihiro and Iori. These two are the same age, but they don't feel like they're the same age. It feels like we're watching a grown man stood next to a schoolgirl. That's how it feels, the mentality difference between the two. In these small and subtle differences, Hokuzono just drives it home hard. What we're seeing here is just a total contrast of characters. But Chihiro mentions how he's not scared of killing people, but further goes on to say how that's why he's not like Iori. This is the only life he's ever known, but Iori has led a normal life and stands at a crossroads. And well, when faced with these choices, Iori eventually says that she wants to go back to school, which, as I mentioned earlier, had that conversation continued on the room, I think that was where that was going to go anyway. But I feel like right now they're at a crossroads. There is a crossroad of events happening, and I feel like as she's decided that she wants to go back to school, her meeting with Hirohiku and seeing what Chihiro and Hirohiku are about to do, I think could potentially sway her decision. I'm not sure how, but there's a lot of interesting nuances going on within this trifecta of characters right now. But before their conversation can continue even further, guess who appears in the elevator shaft? None other than motherfucking Hirohiku, and he appears to be holding the head of none other than Yojiro Sengoku, because that guy just got absolutely no diffed and off screen. And as the chapter comes to a close, Hirohiku tells Chihiro he's ready for him. Now, I say this almost every single week, but goddamn, Hokuzono knows how to fucking cook. Every single week, this dude, he just drops a absolute nuclear bomb on my mentality for what I'm enjoying with this series. It's genuine. It's just amazing. It's amazing. Every single week, it's just straight 10 out of 10 for a chapter for me. But anyway, that's everything from me. If you've not already, please be sure to like and subscribe. Consider becoming a channel member as it helps support me. Go on Patreon, I guess, whatever. And as always, I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Much fucking love. Big fucking kisses. Peace.